another one and probably our final of the Survivor Season 39 tell-alls, and we're ending it on the best note, right? With Lauren Ashley Beck, the fire goddess queen, who gets, what is it? The robbed goddess, fire goddess, all of that, who goes out in fourth place. Yeah, what did you call it?
Fallen angel.
Fire loser.
Yeah, exactly.
I like fire loser.
Fire loser, the fallen angel
like
of season 39, Lauren Ashley Beck. Thanks for coming on. And this is, I think, what is this, Alexa? Our 7th or 8th one, which puts us right up there with how many we did for Edge of Extinction, which is great. And you were talked about a lot in all of these, and that just goes like, I mean, Elaine's already here. She's here. She's saying,
"Hey, girl, they're doing to come hang out."
Elaine.
You were talked about a lot in recent podcasts with Elaine and with Tommy and with Dean. So everybody's calling you a threat. Everybody's claiming that you weren't part of these like final 3 alliances. We got to hear what you were doing, what was going on the entire time, and how 2 people like you and Lazy, or you and Tommy, who were so lazy.
No, that was perfect.
That was actually a slip. Who were so lazy, were able to make it to Final 4 and make such compelling arguments that people were terrified you were going to win.
We were just busy strategizing.
That's a good way to put it.
Busy describing to Tommy what a weave is, and I would love to hear how you had to explain that to him.
Okay, so it was like the first couple days, and Tommy comes up to me, and he's like, how long have you been married? This was the first scene that you saw between Tommy and I.
Oh, yeah.
And we're walking away, and he's like, so how do you get your hair like that? And I was like,
great question.
Let me explain it to you. And then I think he either said, is it extensions? I don't think he knew the term weave, but I was like, it's braids. And he's like, so is this your hair? And he touched like the bottom. And I was like, no. I was like, but the black part underneath is my hair. And he's like, but I don't understand. How does it work? So I was showing him how they like braid it in. And then I was telling him how weaves cost like $1,000. And I was like, but don't tell my husband. I have to work my ass off to get them done. And it was just one of those things that like, I think just allowed us to connect over something that was outside of the game, that was silly, that we could laugh about. And then one day, one of my braids actually fell out. So Tommy tucked it like a rat tail in his buff and was like walking around camp. And then we actually put it in the fire, and the cameramen were like, wanted to make it a point for me to like put it in the fire because they were going to use it, but they didn't use it. So Tommy got a little hair lesson on the island. Seeing
you throw that in the fire and or Tommy with a rat tail would have been
TV. It was great. I think you might have worn it to a tribal. I might be wrong though. I don't know. Who knows?
I think it's funny because I'll be honest.
Phil, do you know what a weave is?
No, I had no idea, but it was funny because then when we were in New York, Tommy and Jason were trying to explain it to me.
Yeah,
so I was getting the explanation from Tommy.
Wait, I want to hear this.
The third-party explanation.
Well, I don't really remember much of the explanation, but they were like, dude, it was a weave. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And then Tommy was just like, yeah, it's like the hair. And I'm like,
thing on the hair.
There was really no explanation. It was just kind of like, yeah, it's something that's on her hair. Like, and I still don't really get it, but that was cool. I mean, your hair looked great the entire time you were out there. So that's what
we were missing a piece. No one even knows.
Thank you. It's so for Black women, it's like a protective style. So like I can swim and stuff. Cause if I went with my natural hair, I would have an afro the entire time. I would not, cause the humidity, my hair would just be like, So yeah, braids worked. And Janet, she looked at me one day and she was like, your hair actually looks really good. You wouldn't think so, but I think it looks really, really good.
This is a compliment, right?
Like, thank you, Janet. Yeah. Well, she knows how I am. Like, I'm very much like, how do I look?
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's why it was Survivor Barbie, right? That's why. Yeah.
Well, I'm now jumping way too far, but in your Ponderosa, and it sounded like in some of your pregame stuff, you were like, I'm an indoor cat. Like I think there was a bug on the wall, and you had a meltdown. How was the transition to playing the game?
So for me, I knew that I was gonna freak the F out if I went on an island and had to be outside for more than 6 hours. So I knew that about myself. So I actually did some survival training before I went out there. And at my former nanny boss's house, they live like on a ranch. So I like chopped down sugarcane and made a shelter and slept outside. I bawled my eyes out like all night long, which you guys saw me cry a ton, but I'm glad I cried at home and then went out there. So the first night, like it wasn't that hard. Because your adrenaline's going, and you're so excited to meet everybody that you don't actually realize that you're outside. As silly as that
That sounds about right. Yeah.
There's so many things that you're trying to do and think about that I guess the times you realize it are when your back is hurting on the shelter or it's raining cats and dogs and you can't get dry. But I mean, for the first couple days, like it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like I definitely thought it was going to be more difficult than it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's because like the starvation hasn't hit yet, the exhaustion hasn't hit yet, and especially you're on the winning tribe like you don't go to tribal until day 6, so you get a little bit of time to really get your feel in the game and be like, oh, this is fun, rather than being on Lyra where it's like this isn't fun because we immediately have to go.
Like I will say what I think kept Vokai so strong is that we were having a lot of fun in those first 6 days. We were really enjoying each other's company. And Chelsea actually like makes fun of me all the time because she's like, we were wrestling at Lyro having fun and you at Vokai were just praying. I don't know if you guys have heard about our gratitudes.
No.
Have you heard about this?
We have not.
Okay, so every night before we would like have our rice, we would do gratitudes and say 3 things that we were grateful for throughout the day. And like all of us would end up crying or like whatever, missing home. And it was just very sweet. But Chelsea always makes fun of me and is like, you guys were too busy praying. We were actually having fun. And I'm like, yeah, that's why we beat your ass.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of like that though. That's a good like team building every night.
Yeah. Like, and I like, we, a lot of the things that I thought they were going to show about Vokai, they didn't, because obviously they need to spend more time on the strategy over at the losing tribe. But we really like got to know each other on such a deep level in those before the swap. And they didn't show us, we sang a lot of songs. We were the most obnoxious winning tribe because we would sing songs like after we won. One night after we won our tarp, I don't know if they even showed that, but after we got our tarp, it was gonna rain and we sang this song. Is there any Vokai people in here?
I don't think so.
Not yet.
Not yet. On Survivor, and it was the best thing ever. And Jack and Jamal are singers, so they sang this like amazing. We're like in a circle. It was amazing. One of my best memories. But yeah, those first couple of days were really what solidified our bonds and what I think made us a strong tribe. And I am not a physical player, so we were doing something.
I would have loved to see you guys be obnoxious. We didn't see that at all.
We definitely were, because Jamal would be like, Vokai, and I would be like, Vokai. The whole tribe would just be probably freaking, like if I was on the other tribe, I would be like, really? You guys are so obnoxious.
Oh, you guys, would you do this like at the challenges?
At the challenge.
Oh man, like, that's good.
In a circle and like totally like have our victory moment. It was great.
Yeah, was it great? Elaine disagrees.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Lyra's making like the meow jokes.
Yeah, I thought Elaine's meow joke was great. I laughed. I
would have liked that, but I'm sure Jeff like hated that.
Nervous. Yeah, I thought it was great, and like good on her for being able to go out there and like it was insane. That first come on in, guys, my heart dropped into my stomach. Like to be able to come out that strong and make jokes like that, Elaine, I loved it.
Especially because Jeff didn't exist for the first 3 days. So
yeah, what was up with that?
So we're literally on these boats doing these like shots for the intro, and like there's a drone and a helicopter, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna take this boat to a bigger boat. So I'm looking around like, where is this marooning boat? And they literally just take us to the entrance of our camp, and they're like, all right, you guys can't start until you get under your camp flag. And we're all just like, what?
Like,
so we go up and like, it's weird because it's like, okay, what do we do? And I think I even said out loud, I was like, where is Jeff? What is going on? And those first 3 days, we didn't do shit. Like, it was like we were just waiting for something to happen, which a lot of people don't realize. A lot of the time, we're just waiting for tree mail or waiting for someone to tell us what to do, because like there's a lot of downtime, a lot.
Yeah. So going into like gameplay where there wasn't downtime, you get to this Molly boot, and Tommy got all the credit for it on TV. But like, what's the
which
deal
is
with
so annoying? Because like, listen, I love Tommy to death because he's the winner. And because we played the game together, a lot of if I spearheaded something, it was given to Tommy. Hell, when I won immunity right after, they go to a confessional of Tommy, and I'm like, what is going on right now? But whatever.
And you winning immunity was like, we'll get to it. Like that was such a big thing.
So, Phil, what was your question? I'm sorry, because
I was just saying. So, like, what was the deal with this Molly vote? Because, like, we were talking about it. It's like that seemed like Lauren's move, but why is Tommy the next? Then the next episode, you don't speak, and it's Tommy going and making amends with everybody.
So it's so funny because the Molly vote specifically, everyone wants to take credit for. Like everyone is kind of like, I don't know who did it. It was Janet. It was this person. It was that person. Of course, collectively as a group, we all have to decide what's going to happen. And I think as a Survivor fan, for me, I didn't want to play a predictable game. So I didn't want, in the beginning, it was obvious that people didn't like Nora and Jason. And it's heartbreaking because I think in the beginning, we're all sort of wanting the target to be put on someone else. And once that happens, you just want to jump on that bandwagon because you don't want it to be you. So Jason and Nora really had a hard time in those first couple days. Nora, actually, she was one of the first people I gravitated towards. And her and I looked through Jason's bag on the first day. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. And she went and told him that I alone looked through his bag. And so after I found that out, I was like, okay, I can't work with this chick. Like there's no way in hell. And he actually did. I found beads in his bag, but they were from like the 3 mail box that him and Janet had found. I guess he was going to use it to make a fake out of later. That wasn't very smart. So for me, it was like, everyone was like, oh, it's an easy vote. We're just going to get out Jason and Nora and that's fine. And I'm like, are we here to play Survivor or like, are we here to just do easy votes? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. So I also connected with Kelly and Molly initially. And after that, Molly and I didn't talk like at all. Like, and I'm a girl's girl. So I was getting along with a lot of the women. I was getting along with the guys too, but I was really close with Kelly, Janet, even Nora, even though she did that crazy stuff. But I didn't feel connected to Molly. And what you would see a lot of the times was Molly, Jamal, Jack, and sometimes Tommy. And he won't admit this, but I told him one day, I was like, you're following the group around like a puppy dog. Like you're getting grouped in with them. So what do you want to do? So I want to say something too, because I think this whole King, Queen, Jack thing came about and everyone jumped on it, myself included. But knowing Jamal, Jack, and Molly, that is not who they are. Like they weren't walking around camp like I'm the king and I'm the queen, but it was very clear that they were a group together. And I think in the early stages of the game, it's not smart to group yourself in a smaller group amongst the larger group. Yeah. So for me, I said to Kelly, Molly is the biggest threat. We need to get Molly out now. And so Kelly and I were like, okay, who can we bring this to that's sort of friends with everyone on the tribe that people will trust and not feel like they're gunning for Molly. So we bring it to Janet and we sort of make Janet feel like, so what do you think about Molly? Like, how do you feel about this thing? You know, and sort of guide her to this realization that Molly is a threat and that she does sort of have the boys wrapped around her finger. Oh, pregame before the game started at Ponderosa, we watched Heroes versus Villains. And I think this actually hurt Molly because Tommy, I think, said Molly was like Parvati 2.0, which is not true. But we had it so fresh in our mind, Heroes versus Villains, that we were comparing people to these archetypes, right? And I think that hurt Molly without her knowing that it hurt her.
Parvati is like the kiss of death.
Exactly. So once someone said that, then the whole tribe was like, oh my God. And the people that she's close with right now are only guys. So it was very easy for people to jump to that conclusion. And so we decided that if we lost, it needed to be Molly. And then we went to that tribal and it was a very surreal moment just to be there, having Jeff there. He looks like a wax figure. Like I had to pinch myself multiple times. I'm like, am I actually here? Like he moves like a robot. Like it's very strange. But he's such a freaking professional, like so good at what he does. And that first tribal was such a just shit show. Like they didn't show a lot. But I think ultimately it brought the people to that vote. I think brought the people together that it needed to bring together.
Yeah. And it brought Jason in.
Yeah, it did bring Jason in, and Jason and I actually got close over that move. And you know, it sucked because then it put some people on the outs like Jack and Jamal. But I think it also opened their eyes to like, this game is never easy. And everyone wants to give me flack for saying that I was playing in fourth gear. Clearly, I don't drive a stick shift. I don't know what fourth gear means. But what I meant was that the second I hit that beach as a woman of color, I knew that it was important for me to try to build bonds and solidify my position within the tribe, especially not being a physical player. In the beginning, you want to win. So I really had to try to secure who I was going to be in that game. So that's what I meant by I'm playing in fourth gear. I was playing pedal to the metal, baby.
I don't know shit about driving either. So I'd be like, I'm in an automatic car. Like, I don't know. But Phil, do you want to go?
No, all I was going to say is that was my favorite part of the Jamal.
No, that was hilarious.
Because I was like, Jamal, you're right.
Poor Jamal.
Yeah.
Poor Jamal, because like, he was a total setup, you know? Like, he's like, and he didn't mean it like that. I mean, I will say this, and Jamal, I love you because I know you're going to watch this. I'm looking if he's in this thing. I think what for me, and I think even for Jamal, he didn't bring his bag to try.
Oh, we gave him shit for that. Don't worry.
Yeah. And so for all of us, that was like, because like at no point in time did I ever feel safe in the game. I never allowed myself to feel comfortable because I knew the second I felt comfortable, my ass was going home. So I just couldn't allow myself to feel that. But that sucks that he was set up in that way.
And his whole argument was, why would I bring my bag? Everything I needed was on me.
Be comfortable.
Yeah, he was wearing everything. So why would he bring his bag? But what do you say to that?
Well, okay, yes, but I think it's more so the message.
Yeah, no, I know you mean. Always look like you feel like you're in trouble or something.
Yeah, like all my stuff is back at camp. I'm gonna go back to it. Like I think that, I mean, he still had, we get 2 pairs of shoes. He still had stuff over at our camp. But I think like it just sends a message, whether he intended to do that or not. That was the message that.
Right. Okay, I have 2 questions, but the first one, you said like, you know, you hit the beach knowing that you wanted to insert yourself kind of into the larger group. Were you looking for, like, did Tommy happen naturally, or were you looking for like a Tommy type or a Janet or whoever?
So it's funny you say that. I think pregame, a lot of us have these ideas about how we're going to play the game, but you can't do that until you meet the people. I always said that I wanted to play with somebody who was similar to me, but who could shield me. And that's who Tommy was, because Tommy is a physical player and he does, you know, have a larger presence than I do. And I think that I wasn't expecting it, because to be honest with you, like the first couple days, like I wasn't really hanging out with Tommy. Like I said, he had kind of built bonds with Jack and was kind of hanging out with that group. So I was really hanging out with Janet and Kelly and Nora and Dan. And I had gotten close with them. So Tommy, no, like it wasn't, when I saw him, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to work with this kid. It did just sort of happen naturally over time.
Okay.
Who did you expect yourself to maybe align with? Like, was there anybody that you were really looking for, or that you really thought you would hit it off with?
I even said it like in my pregame podcast. I wanted to work. Okay. So at finals week, like way back in November, when we were auditioning for the show, Missy was at my finals week. And once I saw her, I was like, oh shit, well, there's no way in hell we're both going to be on the same season. Like, it's not going to happen. So I said to myself, if I do get the chance to play with her, that's who I wanted to play with. I wanted to play with another strong woman of color. And, you know, again, that goes to saying, like, you can't say, oh, I want to do these things, because then when you get there, it's a totally different situation. And there's so many different elements that you can't predict that. So, but when I saw my tribe, I was like, okay, I would love to work with Kelly. I would love to work with Molly, Janet, Nora. Really, I wanted to work with the women. And Janet was such a force. Like, Janet was somebody that I admired and looked up to. Once she made fire, I was like, oh my gosh, this woman's badass. She's just great. She's just great.
Yeah. And I think that's how I think Janet shocked a lot of people, which it's always funny. Like, if you come out as a threat and you look like a threat and then you're lazy, it's like, oh, that person's disappointing. And then you can come out as like the underdog, and if you do something impressive, it just elevates you. It's so funny how you can like rise or fall just based on people's initial perspectives of you. And Janet really rose, it seemed like.
She really did. And I think for me too, it was so important, because I think a lot of people, and we've seen it in Survivor history, where older women get voted off just because of that fact. And I said to Janet on like the first couple of days, I was like, listen, I'm not looking at you for your age or whatever. I feel like we connect. And I want you to know that that's never going to be a factor for me in this game. And I even, when I think back to like Reem, like moving people's clothes and stuff, like that's just the mom in her. That's her wanting to help. But I think people are so wanting to find something that it's like every little thing can be blown into something that it's not. But yeah, I love Janet.
And did Janet have any of those like mom moments where it was like, I'm going to move all your stuff?
Janet was, I nicknamed her Mama J. Like she literally was our mom out there. And she's funny. Like she would tell different stories and like really get us thinking. She would ask us like random questions about like weird shit. But I really look up to Janet. Like she really embodies what I would like to be. I mean, I look at her marriage and her family and she's a great woman.
Yeah. Yeah, Janet was great. Great. We didn't talk about her enough during the Tommy interview. That's all I wanted to talk about.
Tommy and his mommy. Come on, Tommy. Not talking about the mommy.
I mean, he said that came about because of casting. Like that's how early that was. Oh, that's an eye roll. I think.
Oh, that was a good eye roll for those of you listening on iTunes.
Well, because I think that a lot of people, like I said, we had people at our finals week that we could connect with. Elizabeth was at my finals week. Like Dan, Jack,
who else was there?
So Dan, Jack, Elizabeth, Missy, Chelsea, myself. It was like almost half the count. And yeah, I connected with Elizabeth. I called her sunshine and rainbows and butterflies. And Jack was just like this surfer dude. That's what I pegged him as, which is so not who he is.
Right.
But yeah, there was a lot of us there. And so yeah, Tommy and his mommy, I guess, started at Jump Street, which is what we call it.
That's fun. I like that. It's also funny that like Jack is not just a surfer dude, but we didn't see that much of Jack throughout. Like, what was your relationship like with Jack? Because we see Tommy make amends, but what were you doing with Jack?
So Jack and I were actually very cool. Like Jack is somebody that is such an old soul and really seeks to understand people's positions. Like when Jack is talking to you, he wants to know about you. Like, you know how you'll be talking to certain people and you don't feel like they're connecting to what you're saying or attempting to connect to what you're saying. Jack really did try to do that. And I feel bad that I was like, oh, he's like Sebastian or, whoever, like this just a surfer guy, because and not that that's a bad thing, but I think there's a lot of depth to Jack that people missed. And it's unfortunate because he did get grouped into that King, Queen, Jack narrative. And he wasn't that. And Jack, listen, like Jack was such a guy, like he would come up to me and he'd be like, Lauren, you're going to go climb a papaya tree today. Like he would try to get me out of my comfort zone and make me feel good about myself. And I love him. Phil, you were going to say something.
All I was going to say is it's funny that you said Sebastian. Because like becoming close to the Ghost Island cast, they all say Sebastian's their favorite person. He would have won the game had he made it to the end. Like, and it's funny because I feel like they have a hard time editing those surfer bro guys because there's so little conflict with them. And Jack did get his big scene with Jamal this year because it was a conflict scene, but there's not really much conflict that they're stirring up. So there's not really much to show that's great for TV.
And that's what Jack is. Like you even saw it after the Molly vote when he's talking to everyone about it. He's smiling, he's just trying to take it in stride and be like, okay, this is cool. Like that was a game move. How can we move forward? And that very much is who Jack was and is. Like he's just such a sweet guy. And it's sad that, and I do think that if Jack, and I want to get to that too, had made the merge, I was actually very disappointed to see Jack go home. And for me, that made no sense at all. So, but I do think maybe had Jack made it to the merge, Jack is a challenge beast. I mean, that first challenge, you saw him pulling everyone up the wall. Jack literally, I was hanging. I don't know if it's not that bad anymore. I was hanging, Tommy. Next time you see Tommy, ask him about this. Hanging from the wall, I flipped backwards on the wall. So I'm facing this way and I'm like, screaming. And Jack and Jason are pulling my big ass up the thing, like, and I'm just like sliding up the thing. But yeah, Jack was amazing. I love that guy. Yeah.
And it seems like he would have done a really good job. I think Alexa's frozen, unfortunately, on that image, which is great. Poor Alexa. Here,
so beautiful.
I'll remove her so that she can be happy. And then once I see her start moving again, I'll bring her back in. But God, anybody who's watching that's not a bad image, but man, that's not one you want to freeze frame on.
It's beautiful. That's a freeze frame you want.
Beautiful. Let's see if she comes back in. She's still not here. So I don't know what's going on with her stream. I'm sure she'll text me in a couple seconds. She just left completely and now she's coming back.
Man.
So Yeah, but okay, so Jack is great. So
Yes.
who were you wanting to work with? Guess who's back? Who are you
There
wanting
she
to
is.
Alexa, wait until you see what you looked like when you were
You look
frozen.
amazing.
Did I?
Yes. Like if I could have a frozen picture, that's what it would be. Your hair was
really?
like-
Oh, wow.
It's around
guys.
24 minutes, Alexa. Make sure you
was
watch
great.
at 24
Oh
minutes.
God, I probably look horrifying.
But so you were saying Jack going home made no sense. We also
Yeah.
see Jamal use an idol. Would you have wanted to work with Jack and Jamal had they both made it to the merge like together?
So that's a great question. I think, okay, so before the swap, and we'll talk about that too, Jamal was initially, if we didn't swap, Jamal at that time was going to go home.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Jack, I think right before we swapped, he came to me and we were sitting in the hammock and he was like, Lauren, I do want to play this game with you. So I do think that could have been something that I don't know. Like, it's weird because I think for me, it was important because Vokai was such a strong base that if we did merge, that I would have worked with both of them because I wanted to keep us Vokai strong. Mm-hmm. However, after the swap and all of that, things happened where it didn't happen that way.
Yeah. So Jamal was still next. He never really reintegrated himself, but then he had an idol. Would that have like who would have been next in line after Jamal if he plays that idol?
I don't know if Jamal would have played his idol because I think we did a really good job at making him feel comfortable. Like I think that we, I wanted to work with Jamal and it's hard, right? Because you have people that you're closer with and then you have someone, I don't know.
There's no answer there. There was nothing there.
Yeah, like I don't know. I don't know. Like it's like I don't know.
Right. This is how I feel about that.
I don't think Jamal.
Well, he made it.
I don't think Jamal would have played his idol. I think we did a really good job at making him feel comfortable and like he was back in the group and whatever else. And of course, in Survivor, that you should say yes to everything. So I think that's kind of what everyone was doing. So he felt very comfortable, and that's what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you guys end up swapping. And how do you feel about your swapped tribe at the very beginning?
Okay, wait. Before we talk about the swap, I want to talk about one thing.
Okay.
So the Nora going to IOI and coming back and doing her. Okay,
I just barely talked about this. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I had so that day I was like stripping bamboo and I sliced my hand open, similar to Karishma. Like I was bleeding everywhere. I had my hand held in the air because they said like I had to hold it above my heart. And so they were all like making jokes like raise your hand if you love Jeff Probst because I couldn't put my fucking hand down. So whatever. So at the next challenge, they were like, okay, Lauren, you can't compete because your hand is sliced open and it's raining and we don't want you to further injure your hand, whatever. So Nora comes back and she says this whole spiel about IOI and how she has to be the caller. And what they didn't show is, no, I don't care, Tommy. What they didn't show is Nora made a fake idol at IOI and brought it back. And while we're practicing her being the caller, okay, Dan, there's like this running joke. Dan, his water bottle would always go missing. So he would always be drinking out of people's water bottles. So he goes to drink out of Nora's water bottle and a bunch of shells fall in his face. So as we're practicing, he comes over and he tells me and Tommy, he's like, she's got an idol. She has an idol. There's an idol in there. So while she's practicing being caller, we're single file going to her water bottle to open it and see if there's an idol inside. So Tommy is calling me. He's so annoying.
Tommy, go away. It's Lauren's party.
So I literally open it and there's shells in there. And I look at the camera and I'm like, bitch. Like, so then
this is Tommy, so good. Oh my God, Tommy, you already had your 10 seconds of fame. Get out.
Listen, it's just like in the game. He needs me to guide him.
That's it.
There we go.
So yeah. So she does that whole thing with the collar. We're all falling. And I'm literally sitting there like, I have to compete. Like, I have to compete. If I don't compete, we're going to lose. Like, could you imagine if she was the caller? So when I would have loved it. It would have been hilarious, right?
Really quick, were you buying what she was selling at all?
So, okay, this is the thing. I had a soft spot for Nora and I could tell she was flustered. And what she said to the group was, I put my neck on the line to go to IOI. And she did. She raised her hand to go, sort of took one for the team. Because at that point, IOI was putting a huge target on people's backs. So so Nora was like, all go. So when she comes back, she's like, nobody's believing me. And I did this for the team. So I pull her aside and I'm like, hey, like, what's going on? And she gives me a lie. And I didn't know at the time she was lying. So I actually went back to the group and was like, listen, you guys, Nora feels like she took one for the team and we're not giving her the benefit of the doubt. So that's when they were like, okay, let's practice. So then she practices. We're raising our hands. She's walking towards us. We're falling, getting hurt. Like, I'm like, this is not going to work. So then Jason does it. And he's just like, Lauren here, Tommy here. Like he just had it on lock. And you saw that. And it was great when we won that challenge. And that reward that they didn't show, we got donuts and cupcakes. And Tommy did this hilarious donut dance that I will never forget. I don't know why they didn't show it because they really wanted you to think this guy was as boring as paint drying on the wall. Which he can be a little bit at times. No.
Yeah,
There it is.
like right now, as he's trying to call you, he thinks that's like making him entertaining. It's just boring.
I know, exactly.
It's just annoying.
So predictable.
Funny, like laughing, waiting to answer, not answering. I'm Tommy. But yeah, so that was funny. So then we did it, we won, and then
you were the one who had Nora sit. Like you were the one who spoke up.
Okay, that's another thing. And this is another thing too about tribal, where people will say I was sassy at tribal. I think people were very afraid to be authentically who they were. We had all decided that Nora was sitting out. And when Jeff asked, no one had the balls to say it. No one wanted to say, this is the person that's sitting out. And I think that it's like, I was actually pissed when we got back to camp. I was like, why didn't any of you guys say that Nora was sitting out? And then Dan was like, well, I was going to say it, but then I'm like, no, like, so I just said like, Nora, you're sitting out. And I didn't.
It was hilarious.
You didn't say it as Nora, you're sitting out. You were like, Nora's
she's
sitting out. Yeah. The way you did it was so like,
so good.
Middle finger.
Well, I just,
but it's fun, like, it's better as a viewer, like you being sassy is hilarious. Like I love
that. And like too, like I thought she had an idol at that time. So then I'm like, oh, this girl thinks I'm going to sit out and she's like, no. Yeah. So I was like, no, you're going to sit out. She sat my ass out at the end though, didn't she? She sure did. Yeah. Which kudos to you, Nora. But yeah, there was no way that at that challenge we could have had that.
Yeah, no, that would have been insane. And it was funny, of course, like of all the people, she was the perfect person to have to go to Island of the Idols at that time.
She was perfect.
Because anybody else who does it probably can convince their tribe, okay, I should be the caller. Except
that's
for
absolutely
Nora.
Right.
Yeah,
that's absolutely right. And they totally baited Nora with like the watermelon and stuff. Yeah. Like they knew what they were doing. This girl freaks out about food.
And nobody caught on, huh? When she was like, "Oh, the bottom looks like a watermelon rind."
Yes.
When she's talking about the
she's
talking about the puzzle at the bottom, she says it looks like a watermelon rind.
Oh, it's like who made the comparison?
I actually am like just now realizing that. No, which is weird. But I think so Nora would tell a lot of stories that we called Nories, and I think sometimes a lot of things would sort of like fly over our head. Be like, oh, she's just telling another Nori, like you know. So I didn't catch that at all. That is weird that she said that. That's funny.
I love it. I love a Nori. That's too good.
We love a good Nori. Tommy would always encourage her to tell Noris, and it would drive me in. And he would do it on purpose, knowing it pissed me off. Because you'd ask her a question and she'd talk for 3 hours about the same thing. And I love it. It was entertaining. But at day 20, you're like, can you stop talking, please?
Is Tommy one of those? He eggs you on to get the story, and then he walks away and is like, I got to go to the bathroom. And he doesn't come back for an hour.
No. Tommy's the one that eggs it on, but will further egg it on. So she'll be like, I have this ex-boyfriend named Phil. And she'll be like, well, how old was Phil?
Yeah.
He'll be like, what, how old was Phil? And where did Phil go to school? Like totally egging her on and like laughing and like chuckling in the background to himself. And I'm like, can you just stop talking and tell her to stop talking too? You're so annoying.
Tommy says Nora told the best stories for anybody who's just listening.
She does tell. It was like watching TV out there. Like it was so entertaining.
And
Nora just is such a great person in the way that she marches to the beat of her own drum and doesn't really care what anybody else.
Oh, and it was funny though, because like, and we always get like, we got yelled at on Reddit because I kept mentioning how long these would go on for, which like, it's not like condescending. I don't know why people thought it was condescending, but also it's Reddit. So whatever, but
it's Reddit.
But Nora had said to us, oh, we could do a power hour. We'll just do it in 1 hour. And the next thing you know, it's 2 hours and 35 minutes. And you're like, it's amazing because she just, like, once she gets going, there's just no stopping.
It was great. It was easy for us.
We'll get to the final four speech for sure. Because I'm sure that was wonderful to sit there and listen just to have your heart ripped out. I'm sure that was great.
Yep, it was wonderful.
Wonderful.
But before then, what was it like having Applebee's as a reward?
Oh my God, it was amazing. That was the hardest challenge ever.
That looked horrible.
That was absolutely, I was like, there's no way. And I actually wanted to do the puzzle. But Jason was like, me and Aaron are gonna do the puzzle. And I was like, fuck, like now I gotta do this. So I actually got to do the last leg, which was the easier part of it because it wasn't like it was the easier
Not as
part.
hilly, right?
It was. And then like I actually stepped on Tommy's face to like get myself. Yeah, he had like, I think he got a bloody nose. You have to ask him, but like I like couldn't move. And okay, so I love ranch. I like put it on everything.
Okay.
And so Jason is literally yelling at the end, "There's ranch, Lauren! There's ranch!" And I was like, oh, I gotta get my ass into gear. So then I started going, and then Jeff comes over to me. And I'll never forget this. He's like, "This is how you dig on Survivor." And that's when I was like, oh my God, like I'm really playing this. Like I'm not about to just slay here and not do anything. Like I was like, yeah, Jeff, like, and I had a ton of sand. Like Elaine was like, Laura, it was the first time I met Elaine. I'm attached to her. She's like, all right, now spit all that out when I finally made it. And I just had a huge golf ball size of sand in my mouth. It was disgusting. But I did it. And I'm so proud that I did. And that challenge was like, and it was so hot that day. It's funny, right before the challenge. Okay, so, usually when we do a challenge, they give everyone a chance, like with the rolling ball challenge, they get you a chance to get like a feel for it, give you a chance to do that. So for this one, they had tied everyone together. And then they were like, Jeff was like, "Survivor's ready, go." Janet stands up and starts running. And leaves Big Tom, like, and she's like trying to go, and Jeff is like, Janet, and then they were like restart. So already our adrenaline's going, and then we had to restart the challenge because Janet got up and started.
Unreal.
So we go to Applebee's. Great moment, so surreal.
How was the ranch?
They didn't have ranch.
They didn't. So Jason lied to you.
Jason lied to me, and they had buffalo wings, and they didn't have ranch. Maybe I'm wrong. Did they have ranch? I don't think they had ranch.
I can't do buffalo with blue cheese. I have to do it with ranch.
I just eat buffalo.
Ranch is just the reason for the season. Like it's so good. But they didn't have it there. But the food was amazing. And it was a great chance for me to connect. Like I told myself at the swap, I was like, okay, I want Kelly, Jason, and Tommy. I didn't get Kelly, but I got Jason and Tommy. So I was like, I'm good. And then I had Dan. And then I wanted to play with Missy. I had connected with Elizabeth, and Elaine was the only one that I hadn't connected. Like this girl would not even look at me at Ponderosa. She wouldn't give me the time of day. I was like, she's going to hate me because I'm so like, oh my God, she's going to think I'm just some whatever LA basic bitch. But we ended up connecting on a level, like Elaine is one of my very best friends. But at that Applebee's dinner, we had all decided before we swapped that we weren't going to give too much information to Lyra. Well, Dan gets a shark bowl in his system, and Jason says it best. He's like a 16-year-old girl at his sweet 16 having their first drink.
Oh my God. And it's probably as sugary as that first drink.
Oh my God. And he just told everything under the sun that we did, everything that was happening over there, like how pregame, who we were targeting. They knew everything. And I'm surprised they didn't show Jason, like, because I could feel Jason being like, like just like rolling his eyes and being like, Dan, like, what are you doing? But yeah, so
and
that reward was great.
It's funny because it was overshadowed at the merge, obviously, by the whole Kelly Dan situation.
Of course.
But Dan was doing the same thing at the merge, where it was just like he was just blabbing.
Yeah.
Anything he could say was like, "You want to be my friend?"
Just telling everything. And it's like, dude, like that was one of the things that allowed people to connect to Dan, because he does talk to people in his everyday life. That's what he does for work. But I think that there's a time and place for everything, and you don't want to give away too much too soon. And Dan, maybe that was a little bit of a thing in his game, and he should have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
What is it like to have, is it like the coolest feeling in the world to have Jeff scream at you?
Yes.
Like, this is how you do. Like, I would lose my mind if I was in a situation.
It's weird, right? Like it's one of those things where it's like, it's going to happen. He's going to be talking to you, but I'm telling you, every single time I was able to walk into a challenge, it was like I had to pinch myself. Like, am I really here? Am I really hearing Jeff say, "Come on in, guys"? That feeling never changed. Every single time he said it, it was like, wow, like I'm really here and I'm really doing this. And yeah, it was great. Love you, Nicole.
Nicole likes ranch and Tommy doesn't. So Nicole is right.
Yeah, Nicole's always right.
The Jeff thing is cool because the video that's like our main video on our channel is like Jeff competing against in a challenge against me. And then what happens was I was so bad at the end, though I did still win, but I was so bad at the end that he stops competing and just starts yelling at me and is like, dig, you got to dig. And I just thought it is crazy. Like when that first starts happening, you're like, I'm in a movie. Like this isn't real anymore. It's a very different feeling.
It's almost like you're watching it, right? Like you can just see how it's going to happen. And hearing him say that to you it's unreal. It's
amazing.
I'm so grateful. It was great.
So then you have this 4-4 split with Lyro. It seems like you're making ends. It seems like you're doing well. Elaine goes to Island of the Idols, comes back with this vote. You don't know that. And then you go to Tribal Council and it's 4-4 and you're watching like this was like you were just so emotional here.
Well, okay. So
maybe not. Okay.
I'm always emotional. And that's something too, like Reddit, they're like, oh, she cried every time. That's how I deal with things. Like that's just kind of how I deal. I even in like my mom, it's like a joke in our family. She's like, you came out the womb crying and you ain't stopped crying since. That's who I am. Like that's genuinely who I am. So okay, so we swap whatever. Elaine, I was confident that I was going to not be the vote out because I was the one person that could bridge the gap to the girls on the other side. I dropped the ball on that one. But I knew that. So I was like, okay, I should be fine. And then Elaine and Aaron, the first day we swapped, both turned on each other. So they both had told us that they didn't want each other there. So we go to the challenge and it kind of upset me that Elaine, I love you, but it made me so upset that Elaine, when she sat out, she got sent to IOI because I also sat out at a reward and didn't get to IOI. Yeah. Where we were the chickens. So she goes to IOI, comes back, whatever. I knew Elaine had something because Elaine always wears her camo sports bra to wherever we go. And that day she had a shirt on. And it's funny because wardrobe, reading lips and like listening and stuff, that's like a real thing I do. So I'm listening to wardrobe and the wardrobe lady tells her, Elaine, don't touch your chest a lot. And I'm like, what is going on? So I knew she had something. I just didn't know what.
Is this, so they're saying this to her like right before Tribal Council?
Yes. So we actually we have to wait, like when we're on lockdown, we can't talk. But Elaine, we all get checked by wardrobe, we all get mic'd up and all that stuff. And they were like, Elaine, you tend to touch your chest a lot when you talk. So don't touch your chest. And I'm like, why are they saying that to her? Like we know, like our mic is here. We know that. So I'm very observant. And
That's a great observation.
I just didn't know what it was. So we go into that tribal and I knew that I had built a strong enough bond with Elaine that if she did have something, it wouldn't be me. And she did tell me that she didn't feel close to Jason, which was something that I was able to go to Jason and say, hey, look, they don't feel close to you. Like you need to do something. So I was emotional because Jason and I had built such a great relationship at that point. And they didn't show it. So everyone's like, I think everyone thought it was crocodile tears. Like I was crying, like, don't vote me out. But it was more so that Jason, so initially, I want to back up a little bit. Initially, if we had lost and they didn't have an advantage, we were either going to try to flip Aaron to vote Elaine or for all of us four original Vokai to vote Aaron and then have the rest of them vote Elaine and then Aaron would have gone home. But originally my boys wanted Missy out. And I was like, no, because she was the one person pregame. I was like, I want to play with her. I don't want her out. I felt really close to her at that time. And Jason sat me down and he's like, Lauren, I respect you. I love you. But I want you to know that the ideas that you may have about people and how you want to play the game with them aren't necessarily true. And they don't have your back as much as you think they do. So I just want you to be conscious of that and play this game for Lauren and not for anybody else. And he gave me sort of this like little gift, which really kicked my game into high gear. So when we went to Tribal and it was Jason that was leaving, I was heartbroken. It sucked because I felt like Jason came to me not on like some game shit, but like on some like real like human level. Like, listen, I know you want to play this game and I don't want you risking your game for somebody else. So like he gave me something that he didn't have to do. And I really appreciate that.
Promptly executed and kicked out of the game.
Yeah.
He served his purpose to your game and then the rest of it. See, that would have been great if it was like, I'm doing this for Jason the rest of the game,
Well, I did come back from that tribal pissed. And I had a confessional and I was like, this is revenge on Jason. I'm sending every single one of them home.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. Because I was like, he's like my angel, and all of them have to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it seemed like this was like the first time that we really started to see you, because before that it was we would get like the snippy remarks here and there, or you were kind of just Tommy's right hand, and then here it was, okay, this is like really Lauren, and now we understand who she is a little bit.
Which is so funny. Like, I think it's unfortunate, because I think too, like, the comments of me saying like, I don't think Elaine is smart enough to find an idol. Like, I think because people didn't know me that well, they took that as me calling Elaine dumb. First of all, Elaine is the first person that will tell you, I was playing up this, I'm just here on an adventure. Like, I don't know anything about Survivor. So that's a nod to Elaine's game that she was playing. So I didn't know that she was playing up this fact that, like, I have no idea what I'm doing, until I got to know her. But yeah, that I would say that was the first time, even after the Molly vote, that I really was like, okay, I need to have a pulse on this game, and I need to start actually doing some things to solidify who I am in this game and who I want to be. These people that I've looked up to for so many years. I don't believe in goats and being dragged to the end. And I think that's ultimately what screwed me over at the end, because I want to play with people who I would have been comfortable sitting next to people that I felt played well. I think the best player should win. And so yeah. That's what that is.
And then after that happens, so after that vote, Jason goes home. Who were you? Like, obviously it's a close challenge next, and you don't know if they're trying to throw it. You're trying to make sure they don't throw it.
The merge was coming. So,
Tommy's down on his knees, like pounding the puzzle. He's so upset or so happy. And then who were you expecting to go home from the other tribe the night that Jack actually does go home? And how was it explained to you at the merge to be like, don't worry, we're still good?
Okay, so this is where it gets really like, and where I think all of my moves from here into the merge will make sense. So I thought for sure it would either be Dean or Karishma over at New Lyro, because they were 5. What was it? What was the split? It was
5-3 on that one, and then made it 5-2 because Tom was gone.
Exactly. So Tom was gone. So that gave us a nod to like, okay, they're keeping the numbers Vokai strong. It's going to be either Dean or Karishma. I thought at the time it would have been Karishma based on what the girls had told me some pretty horrible things about Karishma. So I thought the general consensus was that they didn't like her. So that I thought maybe that would sort of trickle down and that Karishma would go home. So when we're pulling up and the boats are coming to the merge feast and we're looking, who's there? And we don't see Jack. Right off the bat, I'm like, okay, something fishy is going on. Where is Jack? Why isn't he there? We are at the merge. Everyone knew we were going to the merge. So why wouldn't we keep our Vokai numbers as strong as possible, get all the Lyro out, and then play as we had all discussed before the swap? So I was actually not told about the idol play that happened at New Lyro. What ended up happening was, and this is the reason why my votes went to Kelly. Okay, so one morning we woke up and Kelly comes up to me and she's like, hey, you didn't by chance tell anyone that I gave Dean an idol to get Jack out and told Nora to vote for Jack, did you? And I was like, what? No. And
not at all.
What are you talking about? Like, this is the first that I'm hearing of this. So then I go to Janet and I'm like, listen, why didn't anybody tell me what happened over at New Lyro? And Janet was like, Kelly was supposed to tell you and I was supposed to tell Tommy. That's what we talked about before we merged. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Something's not right. So then I go to Jamal and Kelly and I'm like, listen, I feel sort of betrayed that you guys didn't tell me what was going on. And Kelly goes, I forgot. And I was like, oh, no. In Survivor, somebody tells you they forgot something. That's it. You can't trust them. You don't. What are we doing out there? How are you forgetting? We don't have anything else to do. So I was just like, I can't trust what she's saying. So then Tommy comes to me before that conversation. Tommy comes to me and he's like, I want to vote Kelly out. And I was like, no, I don't want to vote Kelly out. Like, I think we need to stay Vokai strong, whatever. But then I find out this other information and I'm like, okay, maybe she's built better bonds and New Lyro is a thing, because they were also, Janet, Jamal, and Kelly were also telling us that Dean and Karishma were with us. They were with us. So I'm like, they're with us, or are they with you? Because I've never had a conversation with Karishma or Dean. So where does that put me and Tommy? So now Tommy and I are feeling like we're going to be replaced by Dean and Karishma, especially because they had this idol play that Dean did in favor of original Vokai. So then after I find this out, I go sit on the beach. I start feeling sick and I go up to Tommy and I'm like, listen, it has to be Kelly because I can't, like, I obviously can't trust her. I don't know what's going on. And so then I think we weren't sure like what was really going on because there was all this talk about Dan going home, but Dan's a decoy vote and then Missy's going home. So I didn't know who I could trust on original Vokai at all, if anybody at that time. All I knew is that I had been playing the game with Dan and Tommy and we had been building new bonds with old Lyro, and that I felt that OG Lyro was being more upfront with me than OG Vokai.
And so how do you think this would have went differently had they just voted out either Dean or Karishma, one or the other, doesn't matter. Are you looking to get back with Kelly? Like when the merge hits, were you looking to just work with old Vokai?
I was looking to get back with everyone on original Vokai. Yeah, like that was my plan. Going into the merge feast, I was like, I want to get back with original Vokai. What did sketch me out a little bit was the fact that, like I said, before we swapped, Jamal was going home. And then now all of a sudden, Janet's coming to me and she's like, Jamal and I are super cool. We're really close. Like, and I'm like, okay, things are totally different now, which that's what happens in the game. So then Tommy and I, it was like, we need to decide how we want to move forward. If we go with OG Vokai's plan, we're on the bottom. So we need to create a new tribe. Tribal lines are blurred. And whoever wants to come along can come along. And that's essentially what we did. Elaine and I were super close. Then with Dean, it was like we needed to pull Dean in because I knew Dean had felt betrayed by Lyro because of Chelsea's blindside, which made no sense at all. And so it was like we knew that we could pull Dean in and have him be close still because he was close with Elizabeth. He was cool with Elaine. And then there's Missy and Aaron. So tribal lines were blurred and that's what we decided to do.
Yeah. And I think like, yeah. And obviously like a lot is always overshadowed with the Kelly boot because we have all the information, but from a strategic sense, if you don't know the extremity of everything that's going on, I don't know what the word would be there, but sure. Extremity of what's going on, then it does make sense to boot her. She has two idols. She's a threat. She could win the game very easily.
Yeah, and listen, this girl went to Harvard. I could not think of the things she thought of to give Dean the like that. Whoa, like the fact that she was playing on that level at that point, I think it was kind of like a kick in the ass too. Like, wow, like this girl is so smart. She's so strategic. And then like I just there was a lot going on at that time. So I think it was hard for people to understand where that vote out came from. But for me, that's what it was. It was all based on strategy.
And then before Jamal goes home, like we see like the explosion the next night. Where were you and all that? Like right after tribal, where were you during all that? Because we didn't really see you. We didn't see Tommy. We didn't, like, where were you? Like, where were you?
And that's the thing that's so frustrating, I think, because I received a lot of flack for that episode, and a lot of hate and a lot of death threats, and I was not in it. Like I was not in it, and I think that, and that's what's so frustrating. And I was not. I don't know. I must have been sleeping because when all that crazy stuff was happening down at the beach, and
you weren't even in those scenes.
No, I wasn't even there. And Janet actually misspoke and said that I went to her. I didn't go to Janet. I didn't. I can speak up for myself. If somebody's making me feel uncomfortable, I will tell you. So I think that I was sort of grouped in with that, and it sucked. But I was probably talking to Tommy. You know, like what the hell is going on? It really did blow up. But I think that at that point, we didn't have strong enough ties with Jamal. So that's why that vote made the most sense. Like he wasn't, I don't know what alliances he was in at that time.
Yeah. And then so Jamal goes, seemed like an easy boot for everybody. And then the next two votes is pretty much when you guys completely took control of the game. And then it was really over for a little while because it was when Missy and Aaron go back to back. What was your alliance? That it was just you, Tommy, Janet, Dan after the Jamal vote, or like what was going on there?
After the Jamal vote, it was me, Tommy, Janet, Dan, and Elaine.
Okay,
right, Elaine? And so we had this like 5 thing going on. But then I also had a 4 with the boys, which I think that my plan was always to go. Their plan for me was always to be 4th. But I had a 4 with Dan, Tommy, and Dean.
Okay.
And then I had like a thing with Missy and Elizabeth. But my core people that I was working with, that I played the whole game with, were Tommy and Dan. That's who I played the game with the entire time. So after Jamal, we did really bring Janet in, because I know Janet was really feeling on the outs. And I wanted to make sure that she didn't feel that, because I did feel such a strong bond and such a close knit, like she was our mom out there. So I didn't want Janet to feel like she was alone in that situation. And I know she did. Like, she slept in a hole, and it was really freaking sad. And like, when Janet said at that tribal, she's like, you know, I don't know, like maybe I should just go home. It broke my heart, because Janet is such a strong woman. And for her to say that, that's when the light bulb went off in my head of like, oh shit, like maybe Janet has been told some lies.
Yeah.
And like, Janet would never not, you know, Janet always does the right thing. So that's when in my head, it was like, because perception is reality out there, right? So we're like, are they lying to us? That's at that moment, I was like, Janet was telling me the truth. And then I felt horrible. And then I was like, you know, I don't want you to go home. I never would think that she would ever want to go home. So yeah, I really wanted to make sure Janet felt comfortable.
Yeah. So you said that you had a thing going with the guys, and you knew that you were their number 4.
No, not at the time. I think
gotcha.
now that I look at it, now it's like,
got it. Okay.
That was
I was about to say, how did you navigate that?
No, but with them, I always felt that Dan would sit next to Tommy and I.
Okay. Got it.
I did feel that.
More than, so if Dan had won a challenge at Final Four, he's sitting with you and Tom, or he's going to take you or Tommy.
I think that I could have appealed to Dan's better nature. Like, I think that Dan, because after that vote with Kelly, Dan and Jamal, Dan felt indebted to us. Like, Dan felt like, oh, like he came to Tommy and I was like, listen, like, you guys saved me, whatever. Like, and so I do think that I could have talked Dan into taking me or doing fire against Dean or whatever.
Yeah. And then Dean ends up sitting in 4th because it's Tommy versus Dean. Yeah. I gotcha. Yeah. So that makes more sense. But would Dan, so if that's what you were kind of hoping for, does Dan ever have a chance to win any challenges though? Because it didn't seem like he was really that great at that.
I mean, I want a challenge, so shit, if I can win, anybody can win, you know. I definitely think that Dan could have won. Dan, a lot of it was overshadowed because of the fiasco of the season. But I think that Dan, I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah. Well, let's back up and let's actually talk about, so Missy and Aaron go. We talked about that one a lot with like Elaine and with Tommy and all of that. So let's talk about what happens after that, because this we haven't talked about pretty much at all the entire time we've done these tell-alls. Is you go to Island of the Idols, you show off how good your social game is. All of that happens. Alexa needs to get her lights fixed. She's got the motion sensor, and she just
I'm not in my apartment.
It just keeps turning off.
I'm not in my apartment because my roommate is having like a gigantic brunch, and so I'm in like a rec room, and it shuts off. I think it's like every 20 minutes. I've noticed.
Yeah, that's what it seems, because that's the 3rd time you've done it. But so anyway, back to Island of the Idols. So you go to Island of the Idols, you show off how good your social game is, and you come up with this really cool plan. Why don't you take us through like what it was like with Sandra and Rob, how you went about that challenge? I mean, when this happened, a lot of people, so all of a sudden it was like, is Lauren going to end up pulling this out? Because she knew everything about everybody. So let's hear it.
So yeah, that's the thing. I think the best thing about my game, and it's funny because I actually heard Tommy say the same thing when he spoke to you guys, is every day I would look at every single person and say, how is this person going to move? Have I talked to this person? What does this person feel about me? And are they going to be able to trust me, and can I trust them moving forward? So when Elaine goes to IOI, she comes back, and I know she said on your podcast that I told everybody who was at IOI. She told everybody. She told me and Dean, and then she told Tommy and I. So I said, okay, next time there's a pick out of a bag or a unanimous decision, I want to go. So the boat comes. I'm like, I want to go. Elaine raises her hand. She's like, Lauren needs to go. And then Elizabeth and all of them. And the boys, Dan and Tommy, were not happy because they wanted to experience it. But I was like, bye. And I went up and I got all my stuff and I'm like smiling. Get on the boat. I'm sitting on the boat for like 3 hours.
Wow.
Waiting. I puke because I get sick on the boat. Yeah. And at that point, they're like, all right, we got to like get her going. So we go 3 hours. Yeah, it was crazy. So we go to So I get on the wooden boat. I get there and then I see these like huge heads and they're like, okay, like you can like talk to yourself or whatever. So like, of course I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like so annoying. And then you see Rob, who I don't think really looks like Rob, but Sandra I think is spot on.
The Sandra
hers looks like Rob.
Because Rob has aged very much in his time on Survivor. Like Sandra's face kind of stayed the same. Rob, like if you look at season 4, Rob,
melanin.
Season 40 Rob versus season 4 Rob are two very different men.
Two very different people. Yeah, even in like talking to him, like just totally different. So they come out, we walk in, they read this like thing about how they can't enter the game and how they're here to give us guidance and whatever. And so we sit down and I'm like hyperventilating. Like I'm like freaking out. And Sandra just like puts her hand on my chest and she's like, it's okay. Like just relax. And like, just makes me fall in love with her even more because we didn't get that sense of like motherliness in past seasons from Sandra. So like to feel that, it just made me love her even more. So they were like, okay, we're going to give you a game of situational awareness. Basically, how well do you know your tribe? And I was like, oh, I got this. I thought they were going to ask me questions about because I'm such a people person. Like I love to learn different things about people. So I thought I was going to get like quizzed about people. So then they're like, okay, there's this challenge that happened. And I think it was Ghost Island. And we're going to show you pictures of the challenge. And you can pick one person that you think is going to win the challenge. And then I'm like, And then I like sit and wait. And I'm like thinking about it. And then Rob is like, okay, well, wait. What if I give you 2 players and show you pictures of the challenge? But then if you don't guess right, then you lose your vote at the next tribal. But if you do guess right, then you get an idol that's good for 2 tribals. So then once he said 2, I was like, okay, I'm in. Yeah. So they showed me the pictures of the challenge from Ghost Island, which I remembered. It was that like hold up on a bar. And I actually like practiced like what it would look like. So while I was explaining it to them, it like seemed like I like knew what I was talking about. So then I'm like, okay, I want Elizabeth because her alliance just went home back to back, Aaron and Missy. So she's definitely going to compete. And then Nora, because Nora's a vegan, she doesn't eat like stuff.
So you knew there was going to be the sit out portion of the challenge too. Yeah. So Robin, they had said something like, and it can be an eat or play if you want it to be an eat or play.
Oh, so you chose that it was an eat or play.
Wait, that's my lie. I didn't choose it. They said it was an eat or play, but they said that you can use that as a lie to tell people so it seems like you're like giving them a thing. So then I actually, while I'm sitting there, the other test is that Rob and Sandra are talking. You're sitting in the middle of them and they're just like, well, what I would do. And then Sandra's like, no, what I would do. And so the other part of it is to decide whose part are you going to take? What story are you going to tell? So I actually was reciting it to them, what I was going to say. And I kept stopping at one part and Rob was like, okay, no, you can't do that because they're going to know you're lying. Like you can't do that. So I was like, fuck, I'm going to get on this and they're going to know that I'm lying. Because when you go back from IOI, everyone sits in a circle and it's like story time and they want to know what happened and where and whatever. So I leave, come back, and I was so nervous when I got on that. Like I was so nervous and they all sit down and I'm like, okay, so, and then I tell them the story and that's when I was like, I knew that I was going to tell Tommy what happened because I knew that I needed him to help me tell people about breakfast. Like just give little nods here and there, like just drop little things here and there. So a lot of people were kind of on the fence. Like I know Janet was on the fence. Like, I don't know if I'm going to eat or play. I told Dan he should eat. I actually told everyone they should eat. And I know how like easy it is to like, when people are starving and, you know, there's mimosas and all that involved, that it's very easy for people to want to do that. So Tommy and I start on our little mission. We start telling people, I wake up talking about bacon, you know, pancakes, all this different stuff. And then we get to the challenge, and I think that it was smart for Karishma to play, because I think that if she didn't play, we all would have known, even though I did know she had an idol, which I'll tell you about that too, but we would have known for sure, like, okay, this girl feels confident enough to eat and comfortable enough to eat. And it was sad because she did really try, and then it broke. And then,
but you guys wouldn't have just thought like she has no chance to win. So like, that's why she's not competing, because she's just like, I'm not going to win this anyway.
No, I would have thought she had an idol. Like, I would have been like, oh, she's sitting out
so on the bottom.
Yeah, because she's confident. And
so did you push Elizabeth and Nora to eat, or did you kind of purposely hang back on them?
No, I didn't have to push Elizabeth, because I knew Elizabeth was like, my alliance is gone. Yeah. I feel like I am going to go home. So I knew she would compete. And I knew once they heard the challenge, because I explained the challenge to them. Once she heard it, she was like, oh, I can do this. Yeah. Nora, I think Nora is somebody that if you tell her something like, oh, you're not going to like the food, she'll be like, oh, okay, like, I'm not going to like it. I won't compete. Okay. So yeah, it wasn't that hard, but a lot of people, again, were on the fence. Like, they weren't sure of what they were going to do, if they were going to eat or whatever. I told Dean to eat. I told my core alliance they should eat, sit out, eat. But then everyone else that played, you know, it was good that my two horses in the race.
It was so good.
We're playing against Karishma.
And Jeff opens up the breakfast, and no one has a reaction. That's amazing.
I know. Well, because we already had the reaction on the island, you know. And a lot of people too. I was reading on Reddit. People are like, "Doesn't this sort of take away from like the day 39 breakfast?" And it's like, yeah. So I still got a breakfast.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? But no, like, I think it's just funny. But we were all really hungry at that point. And something also that I wanted to talk about, I actually put on my Instagram, is food. Yes. Vokai, we had a lot of stuff. Not a lot. Like, we weren't grocery shopping or anything, but like, we had some good food over there. We had breadfruit, which is similar to like eggplant, and we would slice it up, and like, they had the seasoning rack that they brought from Lyro, and we would like season it up. We found it sweet, so we could have like a dessert. We made crab soup. They made snail soup, but I wasn't eating that. And then when we won the chickens, they actually laid eggs, which I don't know, because like, we literally got the chickens and then woke up in the morning and there was an egg in there. And I'm like, did production like put an egg in there?
Drop one egg.
So we made chicken fat rice, and they would like put the chicken and like sear it, then put the rice and then the egg, and then mix it all together. Oh my God, it was so freaking good. It was
now
so
I'm
good.
Starving because it's like 11.
That sounds freaking amazing.
It was good. Jason barbecued the feet and was like trying to eat the feet. So yeah, we had some really good food, and we found like fruit and papaya and all that good stuff.
You would put that on your Instagram story, and I just want you to know that Tommy actually sent that to us.
He DM'd us.
He DM'd us and said she found nothing. I found everything. Tommy.
Can't even finish the sentence.
Hilarious. Oh my God. No, Tommy did not find anything. I can't. And Jason, did you guys see the extra scene of Jason chopping down the papaya tree?
No.
He got in so much trouble for that. But it was it was his peace offering. Like, here, he chopped down a papaya tree for us. And then also, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you bury papaya in the sand, like deep enough, it gets ripe. So we would like bury papaya. And yeah, like,
who knew that?
How would you?
Dan knew that. Dan knew a lot of stuff about like a lot. So we go back, challenge, breakfast. Who loses? Elizabeth and Karishma lose. We go to tribal. Okay, so Karishma's idol play that day. So you saw Karishma coming back from the well, acting sick, like because she had just found her idol and she was caught and whatever. So that day we were all like going around camp, trying to work and do stuff. You know, everyone says I'm lazy, but like, I would still try. Okay, like I tried. Like, no one would ever see, like, there was never a case where people were like, oh, we're going to collect wood, and I would just sit there. Like, I would try to help as much as I could. So that day, Karishma was laying in the hammock, and we were all kind of working, and Nora was like, because Nora's a straight shooter, she was like, Karishma, can you like get up and like go do something? I know, literally, blunt and straight and to the point. So she gets up and leaves, and she's gone for like 2 hours. So backstory to this is, before that, Karishma had been sick a lot and telling us that like she had passed out before challenges. She was like fainting and not feeling well. So I'm sitting there and someone is like, where's Karishma? And I'm like, she's been gone for like 2 hours. I hope this girl isn't like passed out on a trail somewhere. So Nora and I are like, okay, we're going to go find her. So we walk up to the well. She comes out, does her whole thing, has the idol. And I think had she known me better, she would know. And apparently someone was in her ear telling her that people wanted her to get medevac, which I never heard. She said Missy told her that. I don't know that that's true. I personally never heard that. Could never see anyone on our cast saying that. But if that's the case, I get why she was like not receptive to people wanting to help her. Also production, if something's happening, they will help. Yeah. But I was genuinely concerned. And we come back and she only had 2 coconuts. So I'm like, okay, what is this girl doing? So I knew she had something. Okay. She was acting weird. And I told the boys, I'm like, Karishma has an idol. She's going to play it. And Tommy's thing, he would always say, he'd be like, no shot, no shot, no shot. I'm like, yo, doggy. Yes, there's a shot. Yes, shot. That's exactly what he sounds like. So we go to tribal. She plays her idol like I told them she would. And I had my idol, which was only good for 2 tribals. And this is the season of everyone going home with idols in their pocket. There was speculation about Vince having an idol. No one ever knew about Chelsea's idol, and no one knew about Kelly's idol. But whatever. I told myself that if I had an idol, this is the thing. An idol is almost a curse because once you have it, you feel like it's burning a hole in your pocket. Like I can't tell you how paranoid I was when I had it. I put it in my makeup bag, my like in-game bag with all my contacts and stuff. And I had like buried it under. Tommy went in there and like ruffled it up, and I had it like set up so I would know if someone went in my bag. So I allowed to do that. Like, is that your medical bag or no? Yes. So I look in my bag and it's on top, and I go down to camp and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, someone went in my bag, and he's like, oh, I did. I just wanted to see. I'm like, you are so annoying. And I've never had an idol. I want to see it. Yeah, like tell me that. He's like, I never found anything, so I had to, look at yours. But I am shocked that people are allowed to touch your medical stuff. I know. Well, that's very good to know. They shouldn't be allowed to, and they shouldn't, Tommy. So it's like a curse because you feel like you have this thing and you feel like people know. So I was like, I'm not going to sit on this idol. I have it for 2 tribals, which I won immunity at the next one. And I guess I could have used it to save Tommy, but I mean, that also puts a target on your back. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to play it. Karishma and I weren't super tight at the time. We had just kind of gotten into it at the well about her feeling sick. So she could have put 1 vote on me and I could have gone home. So I was like, I'm going to play it. So play my idol. And then the votes come down. The vote ends up being Elizabeth, which sucked. Because I love Elizabeth and, I didn't want her to go home at that time, but that's what. Who did you want to go if it wasn't Karishma? I want a Karishma, but she had an idol. So I guess it had to be Elizabeth. Because I was going to say, like, if it's not Elizabeth, then you wanted one of your own alliance, pretty much. Or no. That was the thing. I played my game with loyalty. And I did not want the people that I was working with, even down to Elaine's vote. It was really hard to do that because it's like you build these bonds with these people. And just as much as this is your dream, this is their dream as well. So it's not easy. But I think because of that was Elizabeth's alliance had gone home and she had made it very clear who she was playing the game with. At that time, she really only had an ally in Elaine. And so that's what made the most sense at that time. Got it. Yeah. Great. I think you playing the idol that makes plenty sense. Like Jamal playing his. Like, it makes sense when another idol gets played, you do it just out of safety. You do it. And a lot of people gave me I got a lot of backlash for that. But it's funny. It's like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Because they give Kelly flack for not playing one of her idols. They give Chelsea flack for not playing her idol. It's like, you can't please everyone. So at the end of the day, you have to do what feels good for you. And I know that I would never forgive myself if I went home with an idol after watching this game for so many years. Yeah. So I told myself, I'm just going to play it. Not only that, I know family visit happens around 8. So am I going to risk not seeing my husband, who I know is probably already here? No, absolutely not. I'm going to play my idol and solidify my position in this game. Like Jessica Lewis going out with Rox literally the day before the family visit. Like, you don't want to be that person. Bad. Yeah. No, that's horrible. And then too, Elizabeth's brother came out. Like that's horrible, and I wasn't willing to miss that. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
And then with the family visit, so Tommy and Janet win.
Yes.
And then they take, who did they take?
So Janet picked Dan and Tommy took me.
Yeah.
And Tommy didn't have a choice.
Yeah, that's what I'm just going to say. Like, so Tommy takes you. Was that like, if Tommy doesn't take me, like, this man is dead, he's gone?
Tommy knew damn well if he didn't take me, it was over for him. Like, beyond that though, like, all jokes aside, Janet, Dan, Tommy, and myself, from day one, always said that if we went on family visit, we would go together. We talked about it the entire time. Like, it was something we always said. So never in my mind did I think that if those two won, that they wouldn't take me. However, they didn't show. It took Tommy a really long time to choose me. And I was getting very upset. Like, I was really mad. And he said he did it on purpose.
Oh, to make it seem like he was turmoiling?
No, to make me sweat.
Wow.
So annoying. He's like the brother I never wanted. He did it. He made me wait on purpose. He's like, literally, my sister in real life does the same thing to me because I was like, pick me. Like, what are you doing? And he said he waited on purpose just to like get under my skin a little bit more. So we go to the challenge or the reward. It's amazing.
Is your husband a Survivor fan?
Yeah. So we watch it together. So before I went out there, I had actually told him, and this is another thing that I want to talk about. People use the family visit to get leverage in the game, which I was like a little annoyed with, but like, I guess, you know, everyone plays the game the way that they want to. But I did tell him, I was like, you know, when you come, I want you to just try to assess the situation. And if you see something that is off, just tell me. And we talked a lot about it. And he was like, well, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing because I haven't been with these people that long as you have. I think it was like day 33. But yeah, we watched Survivor together. It's our thing. And so we did a lot of strategy talk at that family visit. There was a lot of strategy talk. We even presented the idea. It's funny that Nora was going off on us because we actually thought about potentially sending Nora home at that time. But it ended up, what did we end up deciding? Who went home next?
Well, the next one was Karishma, but it was looking like it was going to be Tommy until it got brought.
Oh, because of the, yeah. So we actually, because then the tribes were split. So we didn't, there was no like solidified vote because there was a split. So we didn't know what was going to happen. But yeah, so then we go back to camp and I can tell things are different with Elaine. Because at that time, again, we had the 5 of me, Elaine, Dan, Tommy, and Janet, or Dean. It was either Dean or Janet. I don't know. This was so long ago. So Elaine, though, I could tell was looking at me different. And she felt very put off, I think, because again, the family visit, it always shakes up the foundation. It always makes people, whoever picks gets the target on them, whatever. And unbeknownst to us, Nora was standing on her soapbox, just trashing all of us. And so, yeah, I think with Elaine, I knew something was up because we had built a real relationship and I could just sense that something was off with her and that something had happened when I was gone and no one told me that they had all targeted me. Yeah.
And then, you know, Dean tells Tommy ends up getting up, doing whatever. Karishma goes home. Nora gets 3 votes, but doesn't go anywhere. And then after that, it gets kind of not predictable because nobody saw really the Dan. Nobody knew Dan was going to go at 6, but then Elaine goes at 7, which she had to go at 7.
Yeah.
And then, so now let's, when Dan gets ejected after that, you're just kind of like Tommy kind of broke it down. He was just gone. And it was just, okay, what's going on? Like, what were you thinking during that?
Yeah, so literally we have these things called walks, which is when we're doing our confessionals. So that way producers will be like, hey, you're going on a walk. So that way people don't think that you're like looking for an idol or like off talking in the woods or whatever. So they were like, hey, Dan, you're going to go for a walk. So Dan goes for a walk and we hadn't done anything in like 2 days there. So I was like, okay, we're going to have a challenge. Dan's going to go on his walk. When he comes back, we're going to be on lockdown and we're going to have to go to the challenge. So Dan's gone again for like 2 hours and we're like, what is going on? And I'm laying in the hammock and all of a sudden I see Jeff and I'm like, Jeff Probst, what are you doing here? And when he says that to us, my first reaction was that someone got hurt at home and that he had to leave. I didn't hear a helicopter. I didn't hear a boat. I didn't hear anything. So I'm just like, what is going on? And we didn't really get a real explanation as to why Dan went home. So, and of course, like, you know, we all, as I watched the episode and you guys were watching it, there were things that were coming out that I didn't know about when we were out there. So that was not something for us that we were like, oh, this is why he went home. I thought someone was injured. And then Jeff was like, no, like everybody's safe. Everything's fine, whatever. Dan is out of the game. You're still in the game. Keep your head in the game. So I'm like, okay. And that definitely does change things because Tommy and I did work closely with Dan. And so it changes the dynamics of our group and our relationship and what's happening. But I also felt comfortable because Nora and I were cool. Janet and I were cool. I always, and this is the other thing, Janet and Dan were as thick as thieves. Janet and Dan had always said Janet would take Dan and Dan would take Janet if it got down to the end. They were very, very close. So I was like, oh, Janet's closest ally is gone, not knowing that Tommy and her were like super close. And so I was like, okay, so then now there's myself. I for sure thought a woman was going to win because we were up in the numbers. Like I was like, it's me, Janet, Nora, and then Dean and Tommy. And then I was confident that Dean, I wasn't really worried about Dean like going on an immunity run. Nora is a badass at challenges. So, and that's, you know, we saw that. But yeah, I was just thinking like, okay, now we just, the deck needs to be reshuffled and now I need to figure out what I'm going to do.
Did you regret not doing a women's alliance there because it kind of just like Janet goes, I know you didn't want to sit next to Janet, but were you regretting that you didn't at least try to make her make fire?
Well, in hindsight, yes, but at the same time, I knew about the idol nullifier as soon as Dean got it. So I don't know that there would have been a situation where I could have saved Janet because they all knew about the nullifier. Everyone knew about it. So no matter, and we all knew she had an idol.
But what if it was just, what if you, Nora, and Janet just voted for Dean?
And then the boys voted for
Janet. I mean, Janet doesn't even have to play her idol. Dean can't play the nullifier. Dean goes home. I mean, was that even something that crossed any like your mind? It wasn't
because we were all, again, first person that you see make fire on our season is Janet with bamboo. So once that first impression hits, it was like, and not only that, Janet is such a great woman. She wins next to all of us. So I think the person that I was afraid of sitting next to was Janet. She was the person that I felt that I could not beat. Everyone else, I felt comfortable that I could speak to my game. Not to say like, oh, my game was so great and this and that, but I felt confident that I could separate my moves from Tommy's moves and say that I was the one that was doing this, this, and this. And I could talk about my IOI visit or whatever the case. But I think that at that point, I didn't want to sit next to Janet. So yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Janet goes, and then you're at Final Four. You were nannying at this big ranch and you had all this space and you were sleeping in tents and stuff. Did you ever attempt to make fire, Lauren?
Oh my God. The age-old question. Okay. On the island, I did not make fire. Okay. This is why. I was very conscious of playing up the fact we all are like an intense version of ourselves, right? So I was very much like, I'm a girly girl, indoorsy. So I never wanted to make fire because I didn't want people to be like, what the hell? Why did this girl, how does she know how to make fire? She says she's an indoor person, whatever. So no. However, that day I made 6 fires and I probably should have saved one of them for the fire challenge. But I made fire. I know how to make fire. I practiced making fire before I came out there. It was one of the biggest mistakes I made not trying out there, but it's not like I went out there, and this is something that's huge on Reddit. Like, it's beyond me why anyone would go on Survivor and not know how to make fire. I didn't go on Survivor not knowing how to make fire. I haven't watched this show for 18 years and been like, oh, I'm just going to go out there and just hope for the best. No, like I actually tried. So I should have practiced on the island, but I didn't. And, you know, when Nora, it's so funny because we get back from that reward challenge and Nora's like, you know, I just want to go for a swim and like hang out and talk and like eat some good food. I'm like, what? Tell me who's going to fire. Like, I don't want to have this, like, she was happy, which understandably so, but I was miserable because I knew she was going to pick me to go to fire. And so she picks me and then I melt down. And, you know, for me, it was just that realization of I'm so close to the end And I've done such a great job at lowering my threat level to where I've only gotten 1 vote the entire season. And now this is the time that I'm going to drop the ball. Like, what the hell? So I freak out. I'm crying. And what you guys didn't see, I'm glad they didn't show this, but I am going to say it. I start crying and I freak out. I'm like, that's it. I want to go home. I want to go home. And I'm like freaking out. And one of the I got my ass into gear and I was like, listen, I need to stop crying, get my stuff together, and I need to go make fire. And I did. I made 6 fires. And Nora and I, when I had that huge machete blowout where I'm like holding the machete and freaking out, what they didn't show is her and I had actually come to a really great understanding after that. And I was like, I am happy for you. And I do want to say this about Nora. Nora is someone in life that puts other people before themselves all the time. She never puts herself first. She's always worried about other people. And for Nora, I am so proud of her for making that move, because that was what was best for Nora in that moment. Yeah. And I think a lot of people wanted me to be like mad at her, upset with her. But because I know Nora's heart, I know that wasn't an easy decision for her to stab me in the front. I know that wasn't easy for her. And I do believe that if Nora knew she wasn't going to get any votes, that she would have taken me. I do believe that. Yeah. And I also think that if Tommy lied a lot in this game. And I think that if she had understood that as well, I think that she would have put the boys against fire. But unbeknownst to me, Tommy was making promises and doing all kinds of things to Nora. And I just feel like Nora, had she known more, and I tried to tell her, but she didn't believe me. And she even looked at me during final tribal and she was like, you were right about Tommy. And I was like, I told you I was right.
Do you think you would have had a chance to beat Tommy if you got to final 3 or no?
Listen, this is the thing. I and at the finale, I even said it, it's very easy for me to be like, yeah, I would have won, whatever. But I think at the same time, you have to understand that at Ponderosa, a whole new game starts. And so people come off, and as they're voted off, people are very bitter, they're upset. And I would love to think that I would have won. And I am confident that I could win against Tommy, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think that them all having to conspire against me speaks volumes to my game and how uncomfortable they felt sitting next to me. Whereas my biggest mistake was feeling too comfortable sitting next to them, but I didn't even get to sit down. Yeah. I didn't even
Well, you probably beat Dean, or I know you don't want to I'm just asking the same question.
Oh no. Hypothetically, yes, unfortunately, and I even said this before, Dean and Nora's games the end of their games were overshadowed by the beginning of their game. Yeah. So Nora was the kind of player that would go to somebody, if, for example, when Aaron was being voted out, she went up to him and was like, Aaron, you're going home. You can't do that. So I think a lot of people were comfortable sitting next to Nora because they knew they could beat her. They were comfortable sitting next to Dean because they knew that they could beat him. Dean had a great week at the end, but he didn't have a solid 39 days. I wasn't with him for the first 12 or whatever, but from what I saw of him. And another thing, I said, Dean is a numbers guy. And everyone's like, what the hell does that mean? What I meant by that was Dean goes with the numbers. So, and that was the game that Dean played. He went with the larger group. Never did I ever hear Dean say oh, we need to get this person out because of this reason. Or even Nora. I never heard Nora strategize in the way of, this person needs to go home, not because they're the king, the queen, of the jack. You know what I mean? There was no real basis. There was no foundation for sending someone home from the two of them. With Tommy, it would have been a great showdown. I would have loved, even as a fan, it would have been awesome to see the two of us go back and forth. And at Ponderosa, a lot of the jury wanted me to attack Tommy. We had a very bitter jury. A lot of people wanted me to go in on him and say, I did this, and I was the wind beneath your wings. But I wasn't willing to do that. And I wouldn't feel good about that, knowing how much I do respect Tommy. And I did always say that if it wasn't me, that I wanted it to be Tommy. And I think, I think if I ever played again, I wouldn't play as close to my heart. I think that, just at the end, I just got too comfortable. And I was confident that I also felt that Tommy also wanted to sit next to the best player and sort of duke it out at the end. But again, Tommy only knew me for 39 days. He didn't come to play Survivor for me. He came to play Survivor for his family. So I can't fault him for doing those things. It hurt. And I'll tell you, up until second to last episode, Tommy didn't tell me any of that stuff. I knew that he helped Dean make fire. He would never admit it, ever. Because I think he was hoping it wouldn't be shown.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So, and when you get voted out, like once you get past the shock of being voted out, once you remember the jury, you're like, okay, I need to want someone to win. And if Tommy's who you wanted.
That's what was so surprising to me at Ponderosa was there were so many people who I felt were still in the game. Like, and it's like, dude, like you're a part of the game. Now you get to decide like who's going to speak for your season. Who are you going to give this $1 million to? Now the ball is in your court. And it was beyond me how upset people were. It was really shocking. It was really, really shocking. And
you were the last person on the jury, and yet literally the day after, Nora's starting to apologize to you, and you're like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah, because why am I going to sit there and bash her? Like, that's not cool. Like, this is a game, and at the end of the day, like we all came here to play for ourselves, and I think that because people are being deceitful, you don't know what's real and what's not. And I appreciated Nora's apology, and I know that she meant that, but it wasn't about me in that moment. It was about her and her speaking, and Tommy too. And Tommy's going to kill me for saying this, but I helped him at Final Tribal and told him to shut the F up because he was talking himself into a hole. And I knew what the jury wanted and what they wanted to hear. And he was just going off on a tangent. And I'm like, can you stop talking?
Yeah.
Like, you're doing too much right now.
And they show Aaron tell him, like, you should stop. And then everybody's like, no, we want to hear this.
Going.
But was that like after the fact? Or I mean, at this point, do you even remember
that was genuine because I think, like, again, some people were very upset. And I think that comment came off very harsh, whereas you did want to hear what Tommy had to say. I don't think, and I think, again, in this game, sort of this pack mentality takes over. And I think that it was very important for every single person's voice to be heard. And so that's what people were saying in response to Aaron. Like, no, like, actually, I do want to hear what he has to say. Nora, same thing. Nora, I felt so bad. She actually had to take a break during Final Tribal because people were being so mean and saying things that I actually had never heard before. And that's where you start to realize Ponderosa is its own game, because then people come home and they just start saying things that are completely false, like not true at all. And it clouds people's judgment as to who they're going to vote for. And it's very unfortunate because I think if Nora could have sort of gotten her story straight and said, you know, I'm the only woman sitting here. I've won 3 immunities. I played this game the Nora way. Then she could have pulled more votes. It breaks my heart that because at that moment, of course, I was still a little upset about my fire thing. So I couldn't, you know, my vote was not going to go to Nora. And I think that was clear that I was probably always going to vote for Tommy. But again, even when I went to Ponderosa, people would try to tell me things to sort of poison the well against Tommy and to make me dislike him. But I knew his heart and I knew Nora's, and I didn't really know Dean that well. I know him better now, but like, you know, we didn't know Dean at the time. So for me, like Dean was never a contender. Like Dean, it was, and that's the other thing. Like I want to ask Dean this, like, because I remember when he was talking to you guys, he said, Lauren, you might want to leave right now because like this was all Tommy's idea. But it's like also, how does that make you feel as a Survivor player? Like if someone is so in on taking you to the end, like you have to ask yourself why, right? Like, why do you want to, why so badly do you? And that's because he knows he can beat you because you didn't play a good game. So like, I don't know that's not, I don't know. I guess if your goal is just to sit at the end and not win, then I guess that's fine. But again, like I said in the beginning, I don't believe in goats. And I think you need to earn your spot there and sit there with pride and be proud of the game that you played.
And I think that's something like about Tommy's game. People will say, oh, well, Nora took him. He earned that spot by convincing Nora to take him. I think a lot of people miss that. Yeah.
No, and that's exactly right. He did. It's not easy to have someone take you. And it's crazy to me too that Nora thought that Tommy, that she could beat Tommy based on the relationships that we saw that Tommy had. But he really had her fooled, which speaks volumes to his social game. He was the best social player. And I love the fact that Tommy won with no advantages, no immunity wins. Like, that is old school Survivor to a T. That means he had to rely solely on himself to win the game. Yeah. And that is ultimately why he got my vote. But yeah, I definitely think I could have sat next to Tommy and talked up my game and really appealed to the jury, and won. But it didn't go that way. So
well, let's back all the way up then. Let's go let's get out of here. Let's get out and go all the way to Jeff Loves First. And you were the first person that ever just had like a friend of his say, Jeff, I got somebody great for you.
Crazy.
So you're a huge fan. Had you applied before this, or was this really the only time that it even ever came to anybody's attention?
So I had never applied before because I know millions and millions and millions of people apply and they never hear anything. So I was like, I'm never going to hear anything back from them ever. So I was like, people said, like you saw with Chelsea, she'd been applying for 7 years. Nora, I think, had been applying for a while too. So, and Aaron too, for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So I had been nannying for this family for like 3 years. And one day they were like, oh, we're having a concert. And Jeff Probst is going to be there. Like, they were telling me all these people are going to be there, and Jeff Probst was one of the names. And I was like, what?
I gotta go.
Jeff Probst is going to be there. And I freaked out because I didn't even know they liked Survivor. I'm a huge Survivor fan. So we like bonded over it. We talked about it. And then my woman boss was like, hey, you should just make a tape. Like, you never know. You could give it to him if you see him. Why not? So I was like, all right. So I made a tape. And we were staying in this like RV camp, really small, like backstage. And I had it in my pocket, my zip drive.
You had like an actual tape.
Like an actual, it was like on a USB in my pocket.
Oh, it was the USB. I was going to say, is this like a VHS
Phil, people don't have those
anymore?
Yeah. Not a VHS, not a floppy disk, Phil. Come on.
I was excited. I was like, ooh.
So I had it in my pocket, and my boss comes in and she's like, hey, Jeff's right outside your trailer. Like, if you want to go. And I'm like, okay.
Where do I leave?
So I go outside and there's a circle of people, and he walks up and he's like, so I hear you want to be on Survivor. And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, here, and I have something for you. He auditioned me right there on the spot.
Wow.
And he was like, so how are you going to do with the rain? How are you going to do with the food? Blah, 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 blah. And he talked to me for like 10 minutes. And I'm like, and meanwhile, like my boss and all their friends are around, like a couple famous people. I'm really like I'm very awkward and clumsy, and I tend to trip over my words a lot. So I'm just like in my head, like, Lauren, don't mess this up. Like, this is one shot.
Like, you were talking to Jeff.
One shot. So I gave him that. That was on a Saturday, and I got a call on Monday morning from casting, and they were like, hey, we want you to come to finals week. It's happening in like a month.
So you go straight to finals from this. Wow.
And so it was crazy. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's been talking about how now they do the FaceTime. Like, you literally got FaceTime with Jeff. You didn't even-
I know. And it was such a surreal moment. Like I can't even put that moment into words. It was weird. It was like crazy. It was out of body. I didn't know I was there. Like it was just so unreal.
Was he wearing his usual like the cargo is the wrong shirt, but his shirt, or was he wearing like normal people clothes?
He looked exactly like he looked on the show. Every time
he like lives his life in that outfit.
Yeah, either that or he wears all black. That's
button down. Yeah, cardigan or cargo pants. But yeah, it was a surreal moment. It was crazy. And then after I met him, then I was like, okay, I need to do some survival training.
Yeah. And now that you're no longer nannying there, I'll just send you my application, and then I'll also be like, hey, I really want to be on Survivor.
Seriously.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Deal.
It can't work. It's 1,000% right now. So I'm going to go. I'm going to do it.
Amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I kind of wish Jeff didn't tell people that story, because I didn't tell people on the island that like there was that connection.
Yeah, that's smart.
And I think people think that I got on the show because of that connection, which I don't think people realize how many flaming hoops you have to jump through to get on the show.
Yeah. I feel like connections are usually like a detriment.
It's also,
absolutely.
I was just going to say, like, also though, I think like you can have the connection, but you're somebody who would kill an interview every time.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the difference is. A lot of people who have the connection that wouldn't necessarily kill the interview. And that's what I always say to Alexa. I'm like, if I could just get past the tape part, I'd be fine. But it's getting past the tape part. And the fact that even if you're sitting there going, oh, I feel kind of awkward, you're still a way larger than life personality than 99.9% of people. So I think that that's what also helps. It's not just having the connection. It's knowing how to speak too.
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely. And because I am a real fan. So like, I think he saw me initially and he's like, what the hell? This girl wants to be on Survivor, you know, but we talked Survivor. And so yeah, I think, yeah, I think I did a good job of sort of selling myself and being like,
I would say you played, you got fourth, you made,
and you got this only happens to like half the people in finales now, but you got voted out and then you got your time on stage. That was huge.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
I'm really good about that. So I actually had a meltdown backstage right before that happened. Like I was like, I swear the people backstage probably think I'm insane. I was like, because I was watching it on a screen and like as it happened, I'm like,
the first time you're watching it.
Yeah, exactly. I like freak out. I'm crying. It was horrible. And then I was like, okay, I just need to pull myself together, go out there. Like my whole family's here. I just need to like get my big girl panties on and go out and, you know, put on a brave face. And that's what I did. But then I went backstage and I broke down again and I was sitting down and Boston Rob comes up to me and he's like, Lauren, I am going to cry. He's like, I just want to let you know that it took me 4 tries. And for 10 years, I had to be made fun of that I lost Survivor and that like, you know, my family would give me so much flack for it. And then I came back and I lost, and I came back and I lost. And he's like, I just want you to know, like, you can do it. Like, you don't have to, this is not like your only moment. I can't believe I'm crying right now.
Oh no. Oh my God. Like Boston Rob. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and that was like the most I had like heard from him. Like, you know, we don't talk a lot. So like, it was such a gift. For him to say that to me, because I do look up to him. And, you know, for somebody who is he met his wife on Survivor, like Survivor is a big part of their lives. So for him to say that to me was great. And I really appreciated that moment. I really, Rob and Sandra are great. Like Sandra, she's spent so much time with us on finale week. Like, I feel like I know her like really well. She's so great. Very down to earth. And yeah, it was just such a great moment that I really, really, really appreciate.
It's really cool to hear that about Rob, because I admittedly am the first person to say like, oh, you know, he's a villain, he's this, he's that, he's a jerk. But to hear that must have been really, really something.
It wasn't like, honestly, I didn't even know how to respond, like, because I was like crying and whatever. But it was such a nice thing to hear from him. So yeah, it was good.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah. There you go. That's your beginning to end right there. You went from casting all the way through to having Jeff be like, I talked to you before you were on here, and this was the first time, because he probably gets that all the time. I'm sure he just gets people.
I have someone on Survivor for
I have somebody, and then to hear from Boston Rob to be like, you did, you know, especially like 4th place now. If you think about the people who've gotten 4th place lately, they're normally people are like, man, they could have won it if they made it. Or even if they would have made it, like, we would have liked to see what they could have done. I mean, Kara Kay had no votes against her. David Wright, Rick Devens, even though Rick Devens had been voted out, but he always is like, everybody was rooting for the 4th place guy over the 3rd place guy. So that's what's fun.
No, yeah, I agree. And I think that's, I mean, I struggled a lot with that. Like, oh, I lost. But I think one person's going to win the game. Yeah. But then I think if I think about my game and reflect on everything, I did everything. I just didn't win the $1 million, but I got to experience every single part of the game. Yeah. And so I should be grateful for that. And I am.
Yeah. And if you think about it, 38 people have won Survivor. Somebody do the math and tell me how many people have lost, you know?
Yeah. 500.
You know, so you're there though. That's the way I always look at it. I'm like, damn, if I were to go and I've ever got to play, if I was the first person voted out, I hope I could look at it positively and be like, well, I played, like I got to do it. So, but Lauren, is there anything else that you want to share with us that we haven't covered in any of the tell-alls or in this one, or anything you got that's itching to get out?
I want to give a nod to mine and Elaine's relationship because that was not shown. Elaine and I had some great times on the island. We would go fishing together. She would like force me to get my hands dirty. We caught like 10 fish one day, the two of us, and one of them, like the fish's eye got caught in the net and she like made me pull it out. I was freaking out. It was disgusting. And then her and the cameraman would always scare me. They were like in cahoots together. So I'd be like walking up the trail and she would like come out and I'd like fall on the ground because I was so scared. And then, yeah, like I think what's so unfortunate, I think, about some of the seasons is that the shtick of the season gets in the way of really getting to know the people. And I did get to play with some pretty awesome people. And I feel like we missed a lot of that, which is really unfortunate. But yeah, I don't know. We had some great times out there. Like,
you guys have a really fun cast.
Yeah, like thank you. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. We're great. But that's one more thing I do want to say. A lot of people, especially on Reddit, and they tell you not to read it, but we do. A lot of people were like, oh, Lauren and Tommy are really entitled, which is something I've never been called in life before because I work for everything I have. And I want to caution people to know that they're watching a story, right? So like, that's what you have to remember. You know, you're watching a story. This is a TV show. Like, you're only getting bits and pieces of people. You're not getting 100% of them.
It'll be interesting because the last time, like when Game Changers was an all returnee season, that was a little bit different because there weren't like, not everybody was like a great player. So there were goats and everything like that. And there were still people like, why is Caleb playing a second time? But on an all winter season, I'm curious to see how the internet is going to react to it on Twitter and on Reddit and everything, where really the only person who it seems like a lot of, well, they don't really like Ben and they don't really like Adam. That seems to be like the consensus here.
Sarah,
but
I don't like Sarah either.
Other than that, like what can you really say when these people have all won before? And I'm curious to see what it's going to be like on the internet over the course of like the next 5 months. I feel like it's got to be different than it was because we know nobody's going to pull a JT because this is a lot of times only the second time people are playing.
Well, that's the thing that's going to be kind of cool too, is like now we know these people. So now we really can just look at their game and what is happening and who's doing what. But yeah, how do you decide? Like people have asked me, who do you want to win? I don't know. I love all of them. Like,
I know.
Like how do you choose?
I have like 7 people I want to win.
Yeah, so like I think we're really just gonna have to see how it all shapes up, how the strategy goes, who's in alliance with whom. It makes you wonder if like real world relationships go in game, how that affects it. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, season 40 will be pretty great, and this pretty much wraps up our season 39 coverage, Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren, wrapping it up.
This is pretty much it. We don't have any other tell-all scheduled, so I think the plan is for us to just move full-fledged into season 40, which we already put out so many of those cast interviews.
I think it's a good time. Like
we got like 2 weeks left. We got like 2.5 weeks. Let's do it. We did all those interviews for the season 40 winners at War. So if anybody hasn't watched those, watch those. Those kind of served as our cast assessment this year instead of doing a cast assessment because we all know who those people are. So go listen to them. Even if you don't understand why we have David Sampson and Scott Pollard, they're great interviews. Go listen. They're awesome. They're amazing. And Lauren, thanks a lot for coming on. Alexa, do you want to like give like an update on our schedule and all that fun stuff that's coming up, and then we can move on?
I would love to. Phil and I are actually still working it out. So I am going on a trip this week to LA, but not to see either of these two, which is upsetting.
Like what a waste of a trip.
Super Bowl Sunday, very early because Phil and I are huge football fans, and Survivor's great, but we need to prioritize the Super Bowl. Super Bowl Sunday, we're thinking around 11 a.m. Eastern time. We are going to do, Phil, correct me, our
fantasy draft.
Fantasy draft.
And intern.
Yes. So there's going to be 4 of us, and we're going to do a fantasy draft. We're going to draft our fantasy teams for season 40. And then we are not going to do a boot list game because it is probably going to be super spoiled and there's edge of extinction, and we don't know how to deal with that. So we're going to have a prop bet game. Phil and I are probably going to do that the following Monday. So that would be Monday, February 3rd. Figure out a time for that. And then we're also going to podcast after that kind of Wednesday night special that they're doing, the Wednesday before the premiere on the 5th. And then this premieres on Winners at Wars on February 12th. So you've gotten a lot of us and you're about to get a lot more.
Yeah, we just got you through the entire off season with, I think, a record number of videos. I think a record number.
No, that was all you guys. You guys wanted to chat with us.
Yeah, we got a lot from
guys. We appreciate you guys for doing this. Seriously. Like I know in the beginning I was like, I just need a little break from Survivor stuff. But I think too, once you start hearing different people's perspectives, you want to like,
when Jamal finished, he was like, oh my gosh, that was really cathartic. He was like, that was amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's really fun. I know we saw the summer. It was like, let's move on to season 40. They've already announced the and it's like,
I know.
no,
I feel bad. You guys are in a tough spot.
I love listening to the season. I love listening to any stories. And also, like, maybe you don't listen to this tell all now, but if you ever go back and rewatch season 39, you'd be like, man, I really wish, or like a new fan who's coming up in like 5 years who starts to become, it's like, I wish I could hear, like, what was Lauren thinking, or what was Tom?
It's a reference.
Now you know.
There you go.
That's it. So I think it's always great. And we love this off season. This was the fastest one. I mean, I can't believe we're 2 weeks away from the season because I feel like Alexa and I never stopped. So it's great.
Go you guys. That's awesome.
Makes it fun. And Lauren, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, Lauren. This was so much fun. You're so much fun.
And this one, it was all great. And we will see everybody on Sunday morning.
Bye.
Bye.